Do you know that it takes 1/10 of a second to create first impressions? However, 80% of those judgments are wrong. So if we misjudge so easily, how often do you think we misjudge ourselves? You need to understand that before calling out the flaws in others, you need to turn that lens inwards and to start focusing on your own flaws. Like I read in one of my books, I really enjoyed it, and it was, before criticizing the world, you need to set your house in perfect order. So that's why today we will talk about judgment and how not just about how we judge other people, but how we fail to judge ourselves correctly. Okay? Because judgment is a defense mechanism to avoid self-improvement. You need to understand that weak people tear others down to feel strong.
Yeah.
But strong people, they focus on their own selves, on their own path, their own growth. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, before starting, I'm going to take us just a quick moment to say there's two types of judgments. There's good judgments, bad judgments. Pretty simple, right? And for the good judgments, I've come to realize that, in my opinion, there's three. I know Jake found a really good take on it. But for the first one, it's when it is based on fact. It is a factual statement. It's not an opinion. You know the whole story. You try maybe to understand what that person went through to, base your judgments upon. So it is based on a fact. The second one that I found is when it is a constructive criticism. It's when you're trying to help that other person. You're not there to tear that person down, but to bring them up. So you come from a place of equals. In a way, you're not just there to be an asshole. You're there to help that person. And the last one that I thought about, I know Jake has a good analogy for it, but it's you need to hold yourself to the same standards you hold others, basically. So I know you have a good analogy for those ones.
I mean, I kind of have a hot take on judgment, right?
Yeah.
And it's this pretty special one, actually. I was trying to grow like a philosophy around fragility and perfection, right? And I kind of tried to bring judgment with the subject, with fragility and perfection, etc.
Yeah.
So what I tried to do basically is invert judgment as something that could be good for our own self.
Yeah.
And first I'll explain what is fragility and perfection really quickly, because I know we will do in the future an whole episode on it.
Yeah.
But basically fragility is what brings you towards growth. And what I mean by that is, imagine having a $300,000 car, right?
Yeah.
Well, this specific car is harder to, obtain, right? Because it costs a lot of money. And also, it's vulnerable to, being broke at some time, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, we, think as the car as something that could be, that not could be, but as something important in our life, because it's vulnerable.
Yeah.
If the car would be like an immortal object, then would take less care about it because it would be already perfect.
Yeah.
So it's the same with love. It's the same with any materials object, and I wanted to bring that specific subject, but with judgment. So imagine that judgment. Actually, I'll say it like that. Imagine that judgment would be a mirror.
Yeah.
So every time you judge somebody and you're conscious about it, then it's because you're conscious about yourself, because it's a mirror, right?
Absolutely.
So you're looking at yourself instead of looking at somebody else that you're judging.
Yeah.
And let's say perhaps that I'll be the subject for the judgment part. I'm somebody that strives for, growth in general, but I like to work out. So I would be more prone to judge someone that is out of shape.
Yeah.
So if you actually judge someone that is out of shape, in my book, judgment, if you see it as a mirror, it means that it is a fear for myself to be out of shape.
Absolutely.
But this, for myself, disclose a fact that I'm fragile about these things inside of my own life.
Yep.
But if I'm fragile about being out of shape, then this can bring me towards growth.
Yep.
And that's what I meant about perfection and fragility.
It's
because
really good.
yeah, I mean it's super strange because fragility in the past was more equal to weaknesses and well being an inferior type of people, let's say perhaps.
But when you change that perspective, you understand that it just means that it's important to you, and you're willing to take more care of that thing.
Absolutely.
And you put importance towards that specific thing,
yeah.
or that feeling.
Exactly. So what I want people to do, instead of judging people for like what they are or whatever, how you want to put it, I want you to judge people to see for your own self your own weaknesses, to learn from them, because your weaknesses are what makes you fragile in some type of way. Absolutely. And from those fragility, well, you can grow.
Absolutely. That's why you just nailed it perfectly. That's why I wanted to talk about projection, because I think it's kind of the same way, but in a different manner of words. Like, that's why I said in the beginning that you need to turn the lens inwards.
Yeah.
Because instead of judging others, and projection is more like you project your own insecurities of others when you judge them.
Yeah.
But that's why I said you need to focus on you. You need to understand your weaknesses. What are your mistakes? What mistakes did you make? What are your emotions to certain situations? You need to become, I always say that, but you need to become your biggest ally. You need to be one with yourself. You need to, because once you become honest with yourself and you're not dishonest anymore, then you can actually grow from there, because you understand what you need to improve on. Because often you get blind by your own insecurities. You're scared to face them on, and the fear leads to inaction. That's why a big subject that I wanted to talk on this podcast is the fear of judgment. Because this is something that is so common in today's society.
I mean, everybody does it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, like, because you do it, so you know how it feels to be judged in a way, so you're kind of scared and you'd rather just stay in your comfort zone. Because that's what I was driving yesterday, and I thought about that. I was like, okay, when you take actions, like for example, it's the easiest example, our podcast. You know, we showcase it to the world, to the whole world. We take actions, we bring subjects every week. So if you disagree with us, then we give yourself all our deck of cards. You have all the pieces, and you can just criticize us, try to judge us for everything that we do. So that takes courage. To be in peace with yourself and in confidence with yourself, that you showcase to the world your own weaknesses, your own failures. You're not scared of them. That's why the self-growth path is the best, in my opinion, because you're not scared anymore. You're just working.
Well, you do it for yourself.
Absolutely. You don't do it for others. And that's another point that I wanted to talk about. Often, like I just said before, but the fear of judgment leads to inaction. So you'd rather stay in your comfort zone. But when you actually start to work on yourself, you're not scared of those judgments anymore, because you see your progress, you see your own growth, and you just don't care.
I mean, it's momentum also.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes you grow. It makes you grow out of your comfort zone, because you feel like you have the ability to actually, well, do something for yourself.
Yeah. And when you understand judgment a lot further than just the surface, when you understand that it's part of the human nature, like we basically all do it, but often it comes from a place of ego. You want to feel superior, you want to feel better without actually putting any work. And that's why I said, like, you're less inclined to judge if you work on yourself, because you actually see that you are getting better than others. So you're just staying in your own lane, you're focusing on your own growth, on your work, but judgment can come for you want to feel superior to others, but you don't actually put in any work on your day-to-day basis, because it's a way to just tear people down, and you get that instant gratification that on yourself, that those emotions that you are better than the others.
I mean, that's the bad part of judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
Because how often people use judgment is to basically, well, apply their fears
Yeah,
on others, right? So basically what you do is, well, if I use again if I'm somebody that's working out, well, I'm more prone to judge somebody who's out of shape.
Yeah.
And well, the reason why I would judge a people out of shape is because,
in shape.
I'm in a state of mind where I fear being out of shape.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant by we put on others our own fears.
Yeah.
But if like I said earlier on, you're actually conscious of the moment where you're actually judging someone else, then this means that you can work on this specific fear about yourself.
That comes back to why I said you need to focus on yourself, because that's the nuance here. Like the complex of superiority, like I said, is it pushes you to don't take actions towards improving your life because you feel that emotions of superiority by tearing others down. That's what I wanted to say. But if you take actions, then now you don't have to judge
others
that much, you know. And it can help you to avoid responsibilities on your own life when you judge, because like I said, you just distract yourself. You distract yourself from your own self, and you put all your focus on others, basically. You need to you just need to focus on yourself. You need to work towards your goals, towards your dreams, and understand that judgment is not useful for your life, in my opinion. It's not something that is going to take you further, unless, like you just said, I can agree with in a constructive manner. Because I think
it's a double standard. It's really hard to, because it's not something that people think about.
I just thought about it, and it can be actually, it can be used for your own growth, because I understand what you mean. It's like, I think we've spoken about that, but you know, when you're children, you don't really know what is good and what is bad. That's why you compare yourself to others. Okay, that person is good in, for example, football. Okay, so if I'm like that, that means I'm good. So that's why, like, when you judge in a constructive manner, you're like, I don't really want to do that. That's not okay. So I'll just take that information and grow in other sense, because you can learn from anybody.
Exactly.
Pretty much, even if it's one of the worst kind of people, you can learn from them.
Exactly.
But in the other sense, you're like, I'm not gonna do that.
Well, or it's something, if you don't want to put it in the way that I'm not gonna do that, you can just say that basically judgment is equal to a mirror. The mirror is equal to seeing your own self. And if you see your own self and you fear being, lazy about work, let's say perhaps, because you're seeing someone that is, lazy, then if you're actually conscious, and you guys can follow also the episode about, our podcast, right? It's about consciousness in the beginning. And after that, it's about perception and dreams, etc. But if you take the first two episodes about consciousness and perception, if you change your perception about judgment and you change your perception, not perception, but you choose to be conscious about it, every time that you judge, you're conscious. So be conscious about the fact that you're actually judging someone else. And because you're conscious of judging someone else, you see yourself.
That's why I love having those discussions, because now I understand completely your perspective, and I agree so much with it. Because if you're conscious about what you're judging people on, you understand that it's a mirror of yourself.
It's a fear.
Exactly. It's a mirror of yourself. It's a fear that you have. So now you can improve on that fear. Now I understand. Completely. And that's great, because I was trying to understand, but that's why I love that podcast so much, because you can actually learn at the same time. You bring a different perspective to the equation. And I wanted to talk about maybe status, because I think that's something that is in our human nature, having that status, that people look up to you in a way so you can actually tear I love saying that term, but tear other people down to upgrade your status by feeling better than them. It always comes down to that, in my opinion. You just want to feel better about yourself.
With judgment?
Yeah.
I mean,
The bad judgment.
I mean, yeah, I think people, that's how they use it.
Yeah.
That's not how it should be used.
No. I'm just saying that
Absolutely,
that's
yeah.
how society uses it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
how
100%.
we were.
I mean, I don't think what I just said as a take about fragility and judgment, it's something that was said once before. I never heard of a subject about this.
That's why I needed to think while you were talking, because I was like, yeah, it kind of makes sense.
Well, that's why I said it's a hot take. It's super strange because it's another paradox of life.
Yeah.
You see, it's exactly like fragility. You see fragility as something weak, but actually it what brings growth.
Yeah.
It's the same with judgment. If we can find a place where judgment can show you how you're weak as a person, then you can grow from it. And it's exactly the point that what I tried to bring at the beginning. If you can see someone else for your own fear, then your fear or what you want to grow or what you don't want to be in the future, then you can grow from it because you can work on those things that make you fear.
And that comes back to the fact when I said that you need to understand yourself and to understand your weaknesses and everything. That it all comes down to the weaknesses, because once you accept that weakness and you are conscious about it, that's the only way you can make changes in your life.
Yeah, and that's why I said perfection is wrong.
Yeah.
Because if perfection is not something that can be changed, then that means that actually you can just judge people in the same way that everybody else is judging right now. Do you understand what I'm trying to do with the correlation? That means that if you're judging people in the state of mind that, well, it's the perfection state, then that means that it's unchangeable. It's something that you cannot grow from.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's the perfection is equal to bad judgment and fragility is equal to, well, the good judgment that you can do to grow from it. It's super fucking strange because it's a paradox. It's not something that people ever used to think about. And I mean, it's interesting.
To be honest, I think you just nailed
it's
that.
It's a hot take, man.
Yeah, but
it's weird.
It's just I tried to come up with other points around it, but it's just that correlation is so perfect. How you can implement it in your own life. I mean, I don't know where to go from there. It's just so good. That thing just destroys all white judgment. You can actually use it for good.
For something good, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but the only problem with what I just said is that you actually need to be conscious. If you're not conscious to begin with, then you're actually just going to judge people in the wrong way, since, well, everybody does it that specific way, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's my points were more with the bad judgments, because that's what society does.
Yeah.
But yours was you can actually improve upon.
Well, you can implement it in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
To seek what you can grow from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because now, but it's just you need to be willing to take actions. That's the other.
Yeah, without action, there's nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You need to be courageous, and you need to understand that you need to act upon that fear. That comes back to the other podcast, though. But you need to be able to act upon the fear and not be scared of the judgments of others. That's the little thing that's...
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, because... Because fear of judgments holds a lot of people back to take any actions.
100%.
I think it's...
And even me, honestly, still to that day.
Absolutely, because that's why I wanted to circle around back to the fear of judgment. Because I think that's why most people just stay put. They don't take any actions to improve towards their goal. That's why I talked about, when you are willing to put yourself out there to take actions, then that means you're okay with the fact that you might fail and people might criticize you, and that takes courage. That's why you need to be willing to take actions. That's the little nuance there, but I think your take just pretty much nailed it all. I think we could just end it up just right there. And
I appreciate it. I mean, it's a weird way of thinking about judgment.
It's a weird way of thinking, but I mean,
it's a beautiful way at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it leads something that we always thought it could be wrong to actually something that could be good for your own self.
Well, it's the same concept when we were talking about stress and anxiety,
Yeah.
about happiness as well.
And that's what I love to do with fragility
because
and
it's
perfection.
something that is so popular. Like it's the most common ideology. Like, you can't be stressed, you can't be anxious, it's not good for you. But when you reframe your perspective and you understand that it's the place where you grow the most, because I mean, I'm gonna talk for a lot of guys out here, but we all felt like a breakup, like your heart being broken, and I think that's where the most growth happens.
Yeah.
Because you are feeling the most emotions, you are sad, you are anxious, but after that, your attributes, everything you have around you is just way better. You just become way stronger from
there's so
those
much
emotions.
to learn from it.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why you need to be conscious again.
I mean, a breakup is equal to failure also.
Yeah.
In some type of way, because you failed.
True.
Well, she failed or you failed at something, and that equals to failure. But from failure, it's equal to growth.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be something to learn from.
Yeah, it's the lessons that you need to be focused on,
Yeah.
and you need to be honest with yourself.
Exactly. But again, like you said, if you're not actually conscious or you do not take actions about it, then you're just going to fail or judge in a wrong way.
And that's why I think the only way your ideology cannot work is if people are not conscious or honest.
100%. It starts with consciousness.
Exactly.
That's why I said consciousness with the judgment. Judgment is the mirror.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there is no mirror, then you see the other person and you're just judging them.
Yeah.
Because you're not seeing
and you
yourself.
don't understand that it comes
from your own person.
So you just have fun. That's why I said that you feel superior without taking any actions, because you don't understand that it's your own insecurities, and you'd rather just tear that person down and you feel better about yourself for that short period of time.
Yeah.
But when you are conscious, you can actually grow from there and become better, and that's why you're less likely to have bad judgment, because the judgments that you're gonna have is gonna be to improve your life.
I mean, also with the fact that people when they judge, it's because they feel like higher than everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, higher than the person that they are currently judging. It's also like a law with humanity where we think, well, we do not think, but we want to detach ourselves from the person that we are currently judging, from that specific thing that we are judging.
Yeah.
And that's how I link to myself that this is equal to fear. And that fear can be seen as something vulnerable, so it's fragile. And because of that, well, it came from growth. But if you don't see the other part that I just bring and in a constructive way, then you just want to judge someone else because it's actually a fear and you want to be detached from that specific thing.
Yeah, you don't want to confront it head on.
Yeah, exactly.
Make changes and tweaks and
or you truly just don't want it in your life.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
That is truly the essence of judgment.
Yeah.
It's something that you don't want.
It's something that you're scared of.
Exactly, yeah. But like I said, if you can change your perception about it and you're conscious, then you can grow from it. And yeah, it's weird.
I think you just nailed it perfectly. I think that's a wrap, to be honest with you.
Absolutely,
it's fucking good.
Appreciate it, man.
All right.